Good afternoon, everyone. We are ready to start the Bicycle Advisory Committee meeting. Thank you for everyone attending. Let's start with the mission and vision statement. BAC mission is to advise and make recommendations to the Commission and the Director on issues related to bicycling in the city, including but not limited to amendments to the bike plan, bicycle safety and education, implementation of the bike plan, development of strategies for funding projects related to bicycling, and promoting public participation in bicycling. BAC vision is by 2027, the city of Houston will be a safer, more accessible, gold level bike-friendly city. Let's move on to roll call. Tom Compson.
I'm here.
Thank you. Alejandro Perez.
Present.
Tracy Alexander. Leah Chambers. Adam Williams. Carl Salazar. Commander Christine Anthony Miller. Joe Carufo.
Present.
Thank you. Lisa Graff.
I'm here.
Houston Parks Board.
Trevor Reichman.
I'm here. Sorry I couldn't be there in person today.
No worries. Thank you for being here or on virtually. Jessica Wiggins. Yahaina Mahmood. Nick Heller. Ben Drews.
Here.
Amar Mohidi. Mike Van Dusen.
Present.
Ana Ramirez Huerta.
Present. Good afternoon.
Nikki Knight. Robin Holzer. Beyond McReynolds. Our ex officio members, Ian Lavacek, David Fields,
Present.
and Julian Robles.
Present.
Great. 9. Okay, so at this time we don't have quorum, so we will not approve the April minutes, but if we do get quorum later in the meeting, we'll be able to do that. Just as a reminder, we are on Microsoft Teams, and the agenda is on houstonbikeplan.org/BAC. You can join by phone by dialing 936-755-1521, ID 486-279-208 hashtag. Please remember to stay on mute unless identified by the chair. If you're connecting through a phone, please mute or unmute by using *6. We'll now move over to the director's report.
Thank you, Misty. And thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, who's chairing today. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody, committee members. I have a few updates. We have a very long agenda today, so we do want to keep things moving, but we have a lot of good news to share. Many you may have seen in the news, TERS 26 has received a grant for Waugh Street between West Gray and Allen Parkway. They're going to work on closing that gap, which has been out there for a little while, so that will be starting to move forward. We appreciate that had been on everybody's radar for a while. We're glad that one of our partners is able to address that. The next one was just announced this week on Commerce Street. You might be aware that there are rail tracks in the roadbed itself. It's been unsafe for a lot of different reasons for all modes. Trains don't use that anymore. The city was going to be doing a repaving anyway. So we've been able to work out from St. Charles to Velasco that we're going to be able to take out that rail and just using striping, design a parking protected bike lane. So no loss, no reduction in vehicle capacity, no loss of parking, and we get a protected bike lane that will help slow traffic and keep that as access for all modes. And these are the types of projects we're looking for more and more, where something's going on and we can connect it to the bike plan. My last thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to another staff member. I had reported a couple of months ago that we are working as a city to update our trails designed for when there are detours. We're working with a working group of Harris County Flood Control, all the different city departments, Houston Parks Board, many of the players who are involved in trails. Harris County Flood Control has a draft design for what those are. Tom Thompson, your chair, is on that working group. He provided great comments. So we're working with that, and what Harris County is going to come up with, we're going to see about rolling that out region-wide. Before the end of my report, I want to turn it over. We have a member of Houston Public Works who also wants to give a briefing on detours. Is he there? Ahmed?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. This is Ahmed Ghali, Managing Engineer with the OCE, HPW. I just the good news to share with you right now that TDO, Transportation and Drainage Operation Department, as well as OCE, is working very hard right now to update Chapter 17. And we have been doing around the country to come with the touring plans for bikes. So far, we're about 80% done. And soon, I would say as soon as September 1st, you'll see new Chapter 15. Hopefully that will have our proposed detouring for plan. I will be honest with and share with you right now. Right now, it's just detouring is focusing on vehicles and pedestrians, but we recognize the issue right now that the bike network is expanding in Houston, and we looked around the country and we are now coming with our own detouring plans for the contractors and developers to address all the issues, and will be living document, and we welcome any feedback from you.
Thank you, Ahmed.
Thank you. And now for the chair's report.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's another hot one out there. Thank you guys for coming out. Only thing I wanted to mention is I think we're making progress with where we're trying to go with improving multimodal transportation around the city. There's a lot more we can do that we need to do. And I feel like a lot of where we fall short is getting like substantial resources. I mean, Harris County has helped out with some of the big projects that pretty much like jump-started our momentum. And I think that, you know, with given the budget that's been allocated for, you know, Public Works to implement stuff here on this end.
Can you please turn on your mic?
Hello, can you hear me? I wasn't speaking into it. All right, so yes, what I wanted to figure out is like our mention and comments on is that we need to bring in more funding somehow. David's doing pretty good things to kind of, you know, apply for grants, which was part of the Telephone Road project. That was amazing. And, you know, that's I think was federal funding, which, you know, is a really big help. And those dollars are there. We just need to find ways to bring them to Houston and show how people can get around differently is beneficial for us on all in general. We've been dealing with like recent events of crashes and fatalities with cyclists, which will be covered later in this presentation today. We are already at 10 deaths for the year. And, you know, last year, I believe we were like 11 or 12. So like halfway through, we were there before halfway already, and we still have the rest of the year to go. So we're trending in the wrong direction, and we need to find something that makes a big impact on reversing this trend that we're heading into. This is part of the reason why I'm here. You know, because I don't want to be part of that statistic. So let's see if we can find something and work together towards making meaningful change that makes an impact here. Thanks.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. As a reminder, you can send your comments to bac@houstontx.gov by 2 p.m. the day of BAC meeting. Comments will be read out loud by staff during the meeting. You can also comment by phone by dialing 936-755-1521, ID 486-279-208, hashtag. Also press *6 to unmute when called upon the chair. You can also comment by Teams. Type your name and what you would like to comment, and it'll be read out loud. Then public is invited to speak to up to 2 minutes. The first person who's signed up to speak is Marian Wright. I've been asked to read her statement. There has to be a mutual respect between bicycles and automobiles for Houston to achieve its goal of safe streets for all forms of transportation. Organization like Cycle Savvy promotes and teaches safe cycling skills for all cyclists. The onus cannot be only on the automotive driver. Cyclists have a dual responsibility to abide by traffic laws and not to act in a behavior that will contribute to accidents or put them unnecessarily in harm's way. This committee should only partner with organizations that take a mission to support and encourage cyclists to abide by all laws. The laws are in place to protect and keep everyone that uses our streets safe. DUI, running red lights, running stop signs, traveling the wrong way, improper lane use, improper passing, and traveling at night with proper illumination have laws in place for both cyclists and automotive drivers. Director Bike Houston, Joe Carufo, recently stated that their organization position was to be agnostic on cycling organization taking over the streets. This is turning a blind eye and giving a slight nod to encourage these organizations to break multiple laws such as crush city cruisers and critical mass and put peoples in harm's way. Bike Houston also promotes events such as pub crawls and fundraising events at brewers. This encourages DUI cycling. Joe also stated in a tweet that if cyclists accepted high visibility equipment from HPD officers, it put the responsibility on the cyclists. Isn't it the cyclist's responsibility to make themselves visible? Joe has also recently stated protected bike lanes are a proven way to prevent cyclist death. Where is the data to prove this statement? Correlation is not causation. Using this type of logic is simply propaganda. Propaganda is not our way as Texans, not as Houstonians. Obviously, what
Your
the
2 minutes are up.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kevin Strickland.
Hi, everybody. As always, I appreciate your time. I think everybody here knows me, probably online too, so I'm not going to introduce myself. A lot to unpack in that prior statement. I just want to point out that cars do not have agency. It is drivers who should be held accountable for the rules. The reason I'm here today, it's really a repeat of what we talked about at the Education Committee, and because this is the Infrastructure Committee, today's a good time to talk about it. I appreciate Alejandro's comments. I think we're actually at 12 cyclist deaths, and sadly, we don't even really track the number of people killed while walking. The community is fed up with the way in which the city manages the sidewalk and bike lane closures. So whether it's permitting, enforcement, or the detours, none of that is currently working, and it's putting us at risk. I appreciate that the city's looking at the IDM to address the detour issue, but that's after the fact. So what's happened on Waugh is a great example. It's not the only one. It's all over the city. The developer, it's been allowed, was that my time? Yep. The developer's been allowed to take over the sidewalk and the bike lane, and we have to fix this across the city. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ed Pettit.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to give a couple updates on the Columbia Tap Trail. There are a string of armed and violent assaults in May for the section of the trail in 3rd Ward has come to an end after the arrest of 3 of the suspects. Unfortunately, last week there was an armed robbery in the East Downtown section of the trail where Nagel intersects with the Columbia Tap near the Tiny Champions Pizza place. It doesn't seem to be connected to the individuals in May, and the MO is very different. They got away in a getaway car. But it's still concerning that we're having safety issues on the Columbia Tap, and none of the promises made at the press release in May have come to fruition, whether it's the lights, the call boxes, the cameras. We're still not getting cooperation from Houston Public Works. They refuse to adjust their jurisdiction and to work with the Parks Department to create shared management partnerships with the community. In fact, the Houston Housing Authority today received word from the Parks Department that Parks is not able to come up with a shared use maintenance agreement with the Housing Authority, and so the Housing Authority will have to withdraw the funding from their HUD Choice Neighborhood Initiative grant for the Pocket Park at Truxillo. So we're losing funding, we're losing federal funding, we're not getting cooperation from Public Works. We are not getting cooperation from the Houston Parks Board. Beth White hasn't responded to us since last November. She hasn't clarified why we're not getting the improvements that are explained in the Beyond the Bayous report. Houston Parks Board, LGC, is not advertising their board meetings, which is a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act. And so I think the BAC should step in and create clear guidelines for how these departments and parastatal agencies are conducting their community engagement with the community. We can't even get an update on the McGowan bike lane, which we've been fighting for 5 years for.
Your time has ended, sir. Thank you.
Do we have anyone on Teams that would want to speak? Do we have anyone in the audience? Okay, great. The public comment is, oh yeah, you do? Yes.
I'll be brief.
Yeah.
Comments. I just wanted to.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone for taking time to listen to these brief comments. My name is John Beal, and I'm just simply a bike rider who's a native to the city. My only comment, my first comment is my apologies both to the committee and to my fellow residents of the city for this being my first meeting here. Part of the reason that I know that we're having problems in the city of Houston, which just the bit that I've heard the gentleman has mentioned, has to do with the lack of involvement of people like myself. Raising the awareness of the fact that there are people on the road other than those who sit behind the wheel of a car. Most of the problem, as I've observed it, I'm 54 years old and I've ridden a bike since I was a kid, like most of us. And most of the problem that I've observed as a bike rider in the city of Houston is that when we are not riding a bike, we ignore the concerns of bike riders as citizens. This is not just an infrastructure problem or a political problem. It's a problem of the lack of involvement of people like myself who won't get involved to change the culture of his own city. These are my comments today. I won't continue to make this mistake. And I just wanted to thank everybody for having me here today. Everybody, be safe and get home to where you're going.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Public comment is now closed. Next on the agenda is ethics training. I'm sorry. Okay, so I believe we now have quorum. Let's approve the April 2023 minutes. Can I accept the motion?
Motion to approve, Van Dusen.
Seconded, Rodham.
All right.
I have a comment.
Okay.
Go
Yes,
ahead, Tom.
it's Tom.
Okay, I just noticed, I think there's a typo on the first page, the last bullet item. It says something like, maybe we'll have profit nominations for conduct new committee chair elections. So I think there's a couple extra words in there that need to be deleted.
Okay, but Tom, we'll get that updated and sent out.
Great, thank you.
So now we would need a motion to accept the minutes as amended by the committee.
I don't know, just motion to approve.
Motion to approve as amended.
Seconded, Robin Wilson.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank you, David. Okay, next on the agenda is ethics training with the legal department, Kim Mickelson. We will we'll put a pause on the ethics training and revisit that momentarily. We will now have TxDOT bike-related components of NHHIP with Mr. Mates. Grading Mapes, are you ready to present?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen and please let me know when you can see it. It says user error on my part right now. Give me 1 second. Okay, please let me know when it comes up. Wrong screen. Sorry, y'all. Now?
There it goes.
There you go.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. It's a little interesting. Good afternoon. Appreciate the opportunity to speak about NHHIP and some of the bicycle and pedestrian accommodations that are going to be included. As I start through here, I'll give a brief overview of just where we are today, some of the things that have recently happened, and then the work that's currently ongoing. So just as an overall big picture, this is the NHHIP project area. On the north end, it's I-45 on the north end. It starts at Beltway 8, it comes down through 610, and then comes to I-10, and then in the green section there, that's segment 3. So starting at the north end, the purple is segment 1, the blue is segment 2, and then the green is segment 3, and is the ring around downtown in a very basic explanation. These are some of the reasons for NHHIP, why it was proposed, and then the project goals. I'm going to run through some of this first part quickly so we can get into the meat of the bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. Back in March of 2023, TxDOT and the Federal Highway Administration signed a voluntary resolution agreement on NHHIP that prior to that, FHWA had asked TxDOT to pause progress on the project, and we were in that position for about 2 years. This voluntary resolution agreement allows TxDOT to move forward with detailed design and project development. Just prior to that, in December of 22, there were memorandums of understanding signed with Harris County and the city of Houston on NHHIP. And then just as a highlight, NHHIP is to remain funded in the 2023 UTP, which the commission is to take action on in August. So the voluntary resolution agreement, what this does, this is a lot of words here, but it essentially lifts the pause that was on NHHIP with the FHWA review, there were no Title VI violations identified, and TxDOT's allowed to resume all project development activities. The VRA provides timelines and monitoring that TxDOT will carry out through the life of NHHIP. And let me skip to the next slide here. This is a very high level overview of some of the commitments in the VRA. There are public meetings. We've got mitigation for displacements, relocations, housings, drainage improvements, parks, open space trails, pedestrian and bicycle facilities, which I'll highlight here in a few minutes, access during construction, reviewing the highway footprint, talks about structural caps, air quality mitigation, and then meaningful access with limited English proficiency individuals that are involved in either in our environmental process or right-of-way process. So where we are today, we are focusing on final or detailed designs in 3 projects within the segment 3 limits. So segment 3 is the green ring around downtown. We are working to get the public and stakeholder engagement efforts back up and running completely. We are moving forward with right-of-way acquisition to focus specifically on the first 3 projects to come out. We are moving forward with the enhanced relocation assistance and then the affordable housing grants in the project area. Quick overview here. These are the first 3 projects that are going to come out. The first package 1 is a drainage project underneath St. Emmanuel from the 45 interchange up to Buffalo Bayou. The second package, the second project will be the interchange at 288 and 69. And then the third project will be on 69 from Spur 527 to 288. So pedestrian and bicycle facilities within NHHIP. This is a typical section of a pedestrian realm, as we are generally calling it in NHHIP. So you can see that there's the typical, so this is what we're working towards, is a 7-foot sidewalk, a 5-foot bike lane, and then a 5-foot buffer behind the curb. That's the picture you see on the left. On the right, the only difference is an illustration of what could be done within the buffer area, depending on engagement with third parties and what may happen there with plantings to be able to provide that additional landscaping within the buffer area. So this is, in this TxDOT, you can see will fund, design, and construct a combination of this. This is not uniform through the entire NHHIP corridor, but this is the typical of what we are trying to accomplish. And this is for the cross streets, all local streets that either cross over or under a highway facility. So as we look at opportunities for pedestrian bicycle facilities, the Houston Bike Plan is already established, and we have identified areas where we can improve or provide additional connectivity. There's pedestrian realms, and I'll show on the next, I think it's the next slide or maybe one after, the pedestrian realms that are going to be on all the cross streets, and then those locations in segment 3. But then there's also some other shared use path opportunities that are on White Oak and Little White Oak bayous that would help expand the overall network. So this is a typical section of what is planned to be constructed on what we're calling garden bridges. And these garden bridges are the cross streets that cross over the freeway facilities. And in this, on the left-hand side in the typical section there, you'll see the 7-foot sidewalk, the 5-foot bike lane, and then the 5-foot buffer. Now this buffer, because these would be on a bridge deck, it's a little bit different from how you would plant landscaping on just a roadway section. But we are having discussions and looking for opportunities to provide a raised planter bed on these bridges that would allow an area for landscaping. And you can see on the right-hand side what that could look like. We're working through to make sure that the design of the bridge is structurally sufficient to support those loads, and then working with local agencies to provide funding and maintenance for that in the future. So this is a picture of Garden Bridge opportunities. So if you look at this, look more at the locations and not necessarily the colors. The colors have a different meaning, but these are locations where those Garden Bridge opportunities are. And there's a lot of discussion going on right now about being able to determine exactly what those look like, but at a minimum, the bike lane, the sidewalk, and the buffer spaces is we're working to accommodate in all of these areas. So on, there's some cross bridges, some cross streets over I-69, just north of the 288 interchange. You can see in the upper left, Elgin Street is one of them, but there's three: Elgin, Tuam, and McGowan. These will be arch bridges, and you can see in the upper right a cross section that shows the vehicle lanes, the driving lanes, and then on the outside of the arches, separate bike lanes and sidewalks in both directions. And in the bottom right, you can see a rendering of what that would look like. And this same condition would apply at all three of these cross streets: Elgin, Tuam, and McGowan. And then these are the expanded trails. Just an overview along White Oak in both locations, but I'll show you a more blown up view. So in the top left, you see the red line about in the middle of the page. That's where this is located. So on the bottom left is the existing condition where you have the White Oak Bayou Greenway Trail. And then on the right, you still again have the existing trail, but on the other side of White Oak, there's a potential shared use path that would be constructed underneath the bridges as part of the NHHIP projects. And then same thing, this is farther up. This is more in the I-10 and 45 interchange area, where again, on the bottom left, you see the existing condition, and on the right, you see the proposed condition where the existing trail is maintained and the proposed shared use path is indicated there. This is a little interesting orientation. Just to orient you to where this is, on the left side of this map, that is down towards I-10. This is I-45 running north and south between I-10 up to 610. So north is facing to your right. This indicates where there are potential trails that could be put in. So on the very left side, there's Little White Oak Bayou, so potential for trails to go in there. Let me go to the next slide that shows. I didn't blow it up. Sorry about that. So this indicates potential trails that can be put in under along Little White Oak Bayou underneath I-45, and then moving north, there's a potential tech park around North Main Street. And then you can see on the east side of 45, moving north and crossing under, there's potential trail areas in there. And up around 610. So these are all identified as potential trail areas. And why I say potential trails is these are high level concepts that as we get into a detailed design, we work through to understand exactly what they look like and where they can be accommodated and how. So this is what we're working towards. The delivery of it and the details to do that will be worked out during the detailed design process. This is existing Jensen. So in the 69 and I-10 interchange on the, I guess, northeast side of downtown, The picture on the left is the existing Jensen Drive. The proposed picture on the right, it shows that the Bruce Elementary School in the background there, with the pedestrian realm on both sides of Jensen underneath the highway section. That would be part of a future project. And then same thing here, I-45 in Stokes. So Stokes underneath 45, just north of 610. The picture on the left is what as it exists today. The picture on the right shows the existing or the proposed pedestrian realm with Roosevelt Elementary School there in the background. And you can see in the upper right, I guess I didn't point out, but you can see the dimensions of what that would be. And then the Emancipation National Historic Trail connectivity. TxDOT, as part of the VRA, will assess what the federal efforts to develop the Emancipation Trail. And as we go through detailed design, we'll evaluate feasibility of accommodating the links through the NHHIP limits. This is something, this area is within the 3 projects, and we're working through some of this right now, but the pedestrian bike realms on these cross streets, so Alabama, Elgin, Tuam, McGowan, and Almeda, will enhance the accessibility to Emancipation Park. So we're working, this will be something that we study in detail. We'll work with the federal folks to be able to understand what that looks like and how NHHIP can provide connectivity as part of that program. And this is contact information that I'll leave up here. If anybody has any questions, you feel free to call or email me directly, and I can answer any questions that you may have. That's the end of the slides. I don't know if we want to take questions or if there are any particular questions, but I appreciate the opportunity to be able to run through that.
Thank you, Mr. Grapes. We can take questions from the committee.
Robin Holter here. Thanks for coming in. One of the questions I have is when you were detailing the bridge structures and talking about how TxDOT would build a structure that could accommodate future plantings or coordination of plantings by others. I hear where that's coming from, but my impression is that TxDOT is required to commit something like 2% of all of these infrastructure dollars towards landscaping and beautification. The Green Ribbon program. Can you talk about how Green Ribbon funds might help make these landscaping projects happen?
I want to make sure I'm a little difficult to hear, so I want to repeat what I heard and then make sure I'm on. You're asking about the landscaping, future landscaping, and how Green Ribbon funds may assist with with future landscaping.
Yeah, I apologize. I had my button backward. Yes, my impression is TxDOT's required to commit 2% of these big infrastructure project dollars to landscaping and beautification. And it seems like that would the landscaping shown as the buffers on the bridges, for one example, would be a great opportunity to commit Green Ribbon dollars to help make that landscaping happen right up front as part of the project and not as a hypothetical future thing with a third party.
You're right. So there are dedicated dollars for landscaping. I would tell you that the initial effort that we're doing right now is to evaluate that we can have future landscaping in those areas. There's generally how we do it is we've learned over the years to separate the roadway construction projects from landscape projects. And when we design the roadway projects, we want to make sure that we can accommodate landscaping, but it would be a subsequent project in the future after the roadway work. We generally follow that work up as soon as we can, but I would tell you right now that I don't have a direct answer to that question. It is a good question, and it's something that we can take into consideration. we're engaging with our landscape architects here at our district office when we're in the design to think through what landscape looks like in the future. We have not gotten to the point of discussing how those future landscape opportunities or projects are funded.
Our next question comes from Tom.
Yeah, thank you. Grady, could you give us an idea of the timeline when construction is expected to begin on the segments you described here today?
Yes, sir. Let me back up because I think a picture will help. Sorry for running through this so quickly. Okay, I skipped over this and I apologize. The 3B package 1, that's the drainage project under St. Emmanuel. Right now, we anticipate construction to start in late summer, so August, September of 24 is the anticipation right now. The package 2, the 288-69 interchange, we would anticipate early summerish June. Let's just say 2025 is the anticipated schedule right now. And then the 3A project from Spur 527 to 288 to begin in same time frame, summerish of 26.
Okay, real quick follow-up. The package 1, is that being coordinated with the North Canal project? It looks like it's in the same area.
It is. There's a detention pond on the north end of package 1 that is outside the limits of the North Canal. Includes what we call the South Canal, which is that piece right in this area. There's a detention pond that's just south of that. The South Canal limits are known and thought through and actually will be constructed by TxDOT through that area.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Next is Trevor.
Thank you for the presentation. I didn't see any mention about the Pierce Elevated being left in place as a potential land garden bridge across the urban core. I remember that had been discussed in the past. Is that still in the cards at all?
There's really been no decision made on Pierce Elevated and what happens with that in the future. I think there's discussion to come on that and what ultimately happens with that. There's no definitive decision has been made at this point.
Okay, thanks.
I think from a TxDOT perspective, when the traffic is moved off of it, that no longer serves a transportation purpose. And that's where the discussion would come in with other entities on what happens with that structure in the future. So there's opportunity there for future discussions and what happens.
Okay, thank you.
We have a comment in the chat from Amar Mohite that says, given this project is going to span multiple years, we would encourage TxDOT and the city to coordinate on the landscaping items raised by Robin.
Yes, I would agree with that and would tell you that as we are working through the detailed design on the 3 projects that we're underway with now, that landscaping is being thought through. Package 1, for example, we have heard from the management district and the TERS and the city on concerns on landscaping. What does that look like today versus what does that look like in the future? There are very detailed discussions going on about that particular topic as we go through the detailed design on these jobs.
So I've got a follow-up question about, you had one of the slides showed a nice map of the Houston bike plan overlaid with the project area for this project. I have a follow-on question, I guess both for Grady and maybe also for David. Can you talk about one of the worst thing would be if we were working from like a 2017 version of the bike plan map. Can you talk a little bit about what we're doing to keep the TxDOT effort synced up with the of the moment latest and greatest status of where we are on bike plan projects?
Grady, you want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Sure. So one of the nice things about having a transportation planning division is all of these projects are kind of staffed by all of us. Tracy Donato, our new planner who is for major projects, including NHHIP, is part of our group. Brandon and Misty, well, Misty is an affiliate of our group. And so we are having those conversations and representing all our modal plans in all of these conversations. Just so far as even those that aren't ours, like Metro Next, are part of those conversations. So the 2017 adopted plan is where we start, but obviously there have been updates and new things built in since, and we're representing those.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Yes, Mike.
Yes, I had a question. Of the 3 projects that are first going to be worked on, you're going into detailed design now. At the end of the detailed design phase, will there be further public engagement or announcements of what the final designs are?
Yes, sir. There are, TxDOT has requirements to go present to the public twice a year on what's going on with NHHIP. I will tell you that we're having discussion now internally about when and where and how we present updated activity on NHHIP to the public. It's a large program, and how to effectively be able to present what we're doing to the right audience based on the location and interest. We're working through that right now, but the short answer is yes. We will be presenting to the public on updated progress as we work through detailed design.
And one follow-up with that, will those be announced publicly through like the midnight mail-outs that we get from you guys?
I don't know the answer to that. I would say that we are going to follow our public meeting. There's a requirements for public meetings. So we're talking through that, as well as how do we notify, how do we reach the appropriate audience. Those are discussions we're having right now to be able to identify the audience, what's the best way to get the information out, and then how do we accommodate the audience that we anticipate.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a comment or questions, actually. One thing's for sure was that project or package 1 along St. Emmanuel, there's kind of a bit of commercial activity, a lot of pedestrian activity. And then I saw that, I think on that slide, it said that construction starts in 2024. When that starts, or what would be, I don't know, what is the process for, I guess, notifying businesses that they're no longer going to be, I guess, allowed because of the construction be interrupting that? Or has that property been acquired already where they're like, when it starts, like everybody just needs to move out?
No. And we're having meetings with the TERS and the management district in that area, and are hearing the same concerns. So we're working through right now in our design, how do we maintain access? From a right-of-way acquisition standpoint, there are some properties in that area between Chartres and St. Emmanuel that TxDOT has acquired, but for the most part, a lot of those properties are still privately owned and businesses remain. So we're working to understand how do we keep access to the businesses while construction is going on. There may be slight disruptions as we go through because it's a pretty substantial drainage project, but we're working to understand where does the construction happen, where are the existing pedestrian facilities, how does construction affect those, and then where can we reroute to maintain that access. That's what we're working through, and I would say great detail as we work to understand what has to happen along St. Emmanuel.
All right. And then It was just announced earlier today that David mentioned the Commerce Street was finally has been decided that they were going to be doing some improvements. And I know that the TxDOT project goes over Commerce Street. Are you guys available to, or I don't know just how the funding works for that, but given that this project is working or starting pretty soon, that TxDOT can accommodate some of that stuff under the right of way to kind of extend the construction of that corridor?
I'm not up to details on what's going to happen on Commerce Street, but and David, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but we're working pretty closely with the city to understand what plans are in this area as we go through design. If that's something that's come up, I would say that would be a coordination item between us and the city to be able to work out what's the best thing to happen there.
All right. And then I think probably the last one I'll pick here is for how wide these bike lanes are. I mean, I see some of them that are 7 feet, like just from the diagrams, and then the others that are 10, like the one on Stokes. I know that's kind of like on a space available thing. But what standards do you guys use to kind of determine how wide bike lines, or how safe or how wide can a bike lane be to be considered safe under your parameters?
I don't know the answer to that question. I would have to go back and look at the manuals. I would tell you that we have manuals that govern the design of bicycle and pedestrian facilities. The design that we do has to meet those requirements. And I'd have to go back to the manual to pull an exact number. I would answer that what we're proposing is in line with those standards and that guidance, and it should meet all of the criteria in those guidelines.
Okay. And I think maybe the final one, because I heard you mention potential trails. So that, I mean, giving history of my experience with TxDOT, I've engaged with NHHIP for last maybe 2014 or something like that, when there was a meeting at St. Arnold. So that's how far back that was. And frankly, it's just like, TxDOT says one thing and then does another thing because something happens or it wasn't in the budget or something was unforeseen. So I was wondering, in this case, the potential trails here, is that because it's an option, or is that something that TxDOT is looking to provide?
No, we're looking to provide that. But it's potential because there's still process to happen to be able to deliver that, but the intent is to deliver those.
All right, thank you. That's all I'll put.
Yes, I've noticed, I don't know if it's TxDOT or whom controls the signs over the freeways around the state. I see signs that say, this silver alerts. I see signs of, motorcycles on the road. I see signs related to children being not left in the car. And I'm just wondering, why can't there be signs related to watching out for bicycles, given that, we have all these projects that why can't we say, watch out for bicycles on those signs across the state?
The messages on those signs are dictated out of Austin. I don't deal with that directly. We have a director of transportation operations that could probably give you a pretty in-depth answer onto that. I would have to defer to him to answer that question, but I know they get direction out of Austin on what messages go out when at times. And so I can get you his information if that's of interest, but there's some hierarchy to what message goes out when.
One of the things, I would like, rather than to have to do that myself, given that I've given you the information and you know who to contact, it would seem that if you have all these projects that you could make that contact and say, hey, this might be a good idea that it was raised, I mean, I don't see why that couldn't be something that staff could do rather than depending upon citizens to try to do staff's job.
And Grady, if you'll provide that contact, city staff is happy to start that conversation.
Okay, yeah, I can send an email, David. Well, I'll get with you.
Great. Dr. V, will that be okay if I take the lead on that?
I don't care.
Okay. Very good.
We have other committee members who have questions. Tom?
He answered my question when it was the last question that Alejandro asked about providing the trails along White Oak and Little White Oak. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy? Okay, I'm assuming that your question was probably answered as well. Joe?
Hey, just a quick response to Alejandro's question about bike lane width. I'm sure that TxDOT is following the AASHTO Green Book, which would say that 5 feet is a recommended width if there's a hard curb beside the bike lane, or in this case, perhaps a vertical planter or something like that. So 5 feet would be a minimum. So I think it showed 5 feet on the slide, and I think it would meet the requirements.
I'm sorry, this is Tracy. I had my mic on. So can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my question is, in the design stage, is it ever considered to separate the trails between pedestrians and cyclists for safety purposes, especially like on the White Oak trails that are being expanded, I guess? You'll have an existing trail and then you're building a new trail. Is that ever considered? Because sometimes the trails can get very crowded, and it seems to be a safety issue for either the pedestrians or the cyclists.
I think that's something that would need to be talked about in the future with design. It's a good question that I think would have to be just a discussion between the different entities there that operate and maintain the different trails.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Mapes. That was a very great presentation.
You are welcome.
Just to let the committee know, our legal department, Kim Mickelson, sends her regrets. She's been pulled into a meeting, so we will have to reschedule our ethics training for another date. We'll make sure that everyone is aware of what that date is. Next on our agenda is bikeway fatalities and serious injuries year to date. Brandon Mosley will present that information.
Good afternoon, committee members. How you doing? My name is Brandon Mosley, staff with the City of Houston Planning Department. On behalf of Commander Christine Anthony Miller, I will be doing her report for the bikeway fatalities and serious injuries year to date. Next slide. The following statistics are based on Vehicular Crimes Division, the VCD report as of July 17, 2023. Year to date, the pedal-cyclist fatalities is 9 and e-bikes fatalities is 1. There have been some questions whether e-bikes were included in the bicyclist category. Originally, it was advised e-bikes were included in the motorized category. However, the one e-bike fatality at 1500 North Shepherd actually been included in the numbers that had been reported. Due to the questions on how many e-bikes fatals that have occurred and to avoid further confusion as the types of cyclists, the VCD report now separates the two for clarification. Of the crashes, 3 of the vehicles were a failure to stop and render aid, including the e-bike fatality. Of those, 1 of the drivers have been arrested and charged. Next slide, please. 216 year-to-date total pedocyclist crashes for 2023. Areas such as North Central, Northeast, South Central have the highest number of crashes, over 20, as well as having at least 1 fatal crash. The fatal stats updated to reflect the most current fatal since July 17, 2023. Only 1 intersection has more than 1 crash. There have been 2 crashes at Antoine and Victory, 1 minor, no injury, and 1 major injury. No design infrastructure issues. Conflicting statements on both reports on who had the right of way. Next slide. All right, a question was raised about mapping pedocyclist crash locations and presenting them at BAC meetings. Mapping crashes, traffic death, and serious injuries is done through data gathered from the TxDOT system and is presented in the High Injury Network map, which can be accessed via the the City of Houston Vision Zero website. Just click View High Injury Map. This is a public-facing website that is accessible to anyone who wishes to view the data. The High Injury Network map, High Injury Network, well, I can't get that out today. Map is presented and discussed in the Vision Zero committee meetings. Commanders and other supervisors from HPD, VCD, and TED, which is Traffic Enforcement Division, attend those meetings as well. Although not presented in map format, the HPD presentation for the BAC situational awareness includes a chart detailing the number of crashes, including the number of fatalities in each specific patrol division, which identifies the geographic area in which the crashes have occurred. Additionally, a report is to run any problematic intersection, i.e. those having more than 1 crash at the same location. Next slide. In addition to the High Injury Network map, the Vision Zero page has an interactive map in which citizens can self-report locations where they feel unsafe as a cyclist, include pics, make suggestions for safety improvement, etc. The City of Houston Planning maintains this map and tool. Next slide. In addition to the High Injury Network map, the Vision Zero page has an interactive map in which, oh, I said that already, sorry. On the next slide, this is our usual presentation of the in memory of roll call, which is Rodney Atkins, John Gray, Juan Portillo, Brian Nose, Jimmy Lopez, Robert Banks, Henry Schultz, Garland Brown, David Hunley, and an unknown cyclist there in June 15th of 2023. The crash that was on 224, the pedocyclist was transported to the hospital and later pronounced deceased on 228. And that is Commander's report. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, may I add a comment?
On the chart where we have the crashes, these are reported crashes, right? So there's still a possibility that there could be like crashes that are not reported because, you know, when talking to people that ride bikes, sometimes, you know, when they get hit by a car, they're alive, they're still walking, the bike is still rideable, like just move on because, you know, sometimes they just don't want to deal with like the, you know, long wait times of calling the police and waiting when they have other stuff to do. So given that these numbers are pretty high, and also noting that some are going unreported means this is something that needs to be more highlighted, I guess you say. I mean, for you know, even though these things are highlighted, but that's my understanding, right? That these are just reported crashes.
Yeah, so we can only summarize data that is received in one package or another. Anything that is reported to HPD or a peace officer goes into the CRIS system, and that is where it comes out. We do realize, first of all, if you're involved in a crash, it's automatically traumatic no matter what else happens. We do encourage you to report it because just like reporting in the 311 system, that gives staff the data to go out and investigate, to see trends, to see if a location, is having multiple patterns of things. And that is really what we can work with best and report back to you what we're doing.
Okay, yeah. Good to hear because, well, I think the issue is sometimes, I mean, the guy that I spoke with, he got hit and the police took his license, but he just doesn't want to bother with it anymore.
At the very least, we do recommend going to the Vision Zero page where people can put pins on locations they feel unsafe. And
Okay.
we use that as an input also, and that is just whatever time of day you want to go online and do that.
So somebody can anonymously say, like, I got hit at this intersection here.
Right, and it'll be more qualitative.
Mhm.
There's no way to do a quantitative analysis on that, but what we can do is say many people have reported this as an unsafe intersection. We can start looking at it.
Okay.
And one more thing while I have it, as part of Vision Zero, very, very shortly, we're going to be posting, you've seen the high injury network, we've talked about this with the group. We're going to be posting an up-to-date dashboard with quarter by quarter data. We're finishing the second quarter's data right now, which ended at the end of June. So we're in that first month. And we'll be updating it quarterly so people can see, maybe not real time, but within a very short amount of time, crashes by all modes with a whole bunch of different search functions. And as soon as that's up, we'll send that out to the BAC as well.
Right.
We have Joe Catrufo.
Hey, thanks for the update, Brandon. I was wondering if you have a number on the number of, or an update on the number of motorists killed by bicyclists.
I do not have that number, but I will give a commander to see if that's something we can pull and reach back to you.
And what about bicyclists or pedestrians killed by bicyclists?
I'm not able to pull that report, but I'll give.
Okay, I only ask because it has been stated that bicyclists have a burden equal to that of drivers in terms of keeping our streets safe. So I thought maybe the numbers would be comparable.
I think you're on mute in the room.
Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'll start over. City of Houston CIP projects, 11th Street to Michaud is complete. Commerce Street to St. Charles to Velasco is in concept. Fondren to Braeswood to Airport is 30% complete. Lockwood Drive to Suburban Street to Kreitz Street is 100% in design. North Main to Cottage to Airline is 60% in design. And Polk Street, to South Lockwood Drive is 90% in design. We have no updates submitted for July reporting for Precinct 1 unless they are in the virtual and have any updates that they'd like to mention. If not, I'll move on. We also don't have any updates submitted for Precinct 2 for the July reporting. Again, if you're virtually here, if you want to give any updates, you're more than welcome to. Moving on to the Houston Parks Board, we have Stewart Park to FM Law Park. It's right now it's complete for construction. Scott Street to Buffalo Speedway is complete in construction, but it's also in progress. It's complete except for the area under 288 pending TxDOT work. Detour open through Margaret Jenkins Park, west along Airport, and south through Houston Sports Park. Austin to McKee via Commerce Street and Elysian Viaduct. They're working towards a permit set submittal by end of August. We have Sharpstown Trail, Sands Point to Beach Nut, and Sharpstown Trail, Beach Nut to Brays Bayou Greenway, and Law Park Connector, McGuire to Center Point, which are all complete in design. Permitting is being done for the Sharpstown Trail, Beach Nut to Brays Bayou Greenway. That's currently in progress. The Law Park Connector is 85% complete in construction. For TxDOT, we have Highway 3. It's 14 miles, and that construction is in progress. This is a buffered bike lane. It goes all the way through It goes all the way south to League City. For Metro, McGowan Bikeway is complete. Construction to begin August 2023. And that completes quarterly updates. We now move over to open forum for, parking and bike lane. Thank you.
Sorry, just one clarification because we have the TERS Bikeway update. This is a good time to do it. Earlier, I think I said TERS 26 was, it's the Montrose TERS. I always confuse 26 and 27. My apologies. And they should get credit without me botching it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for the no parking in bike lane. As of July 25, 23, we've had 207 citations issued. That's an increase of 4. We also have $12,520 that have been collected. That's roughly $1,200. That's a $12 increase. And we've had 22 completed trainings, which is no change. There's no new locations added for the January 23rd reporting. For the no parking in bike lane, there are top 3 locations, 900 Galveston Road, 2300 Polk, and 900 Bastrop Street. These numbers have remained the same, and there has been no increase on this. And also, there's no new locations.
Misty, I have a question or comment on that. So I know that no parking in the bike lane, it's an ordinance, right? What I worry about is on the Columbia Tap, like closer in by the Dynamo Stadium, there's a lot of, there's people there that are like charging for parking in a private lot, which, I mean, could possibly be them. But the concern is it's really common, like right around the bike shop called Edo Biko, where people they have put signs there to kind of say there's no parking there, but people still park. And the enforcement like seems to happen only like during the day. And I'm wondering, is Park Houston only available for business hours, or are they running around the clock, enforcing the no parking?
So while they do have extended hours, I think it's a staff of, don't quote me, but it was 3 or 4 last time I checked for the whole city. So, they do try to respond as they see patterns growing. City 670 square miles, they're spread thin, but we will connect with them and make sure that they're aware of this. So this is on their list to go in and double check.
Okay. So maybe, let me say, how much money did we get to hire more people or something like that,
Thank you. Okay, well, that ends quarterly update. We are now at open forum for committee members.
All right. Anybody want to start? There's a hand raise, I think.
We'll start with Tom.
Yeah, I had a couple things. First of all, there was an agenda item that I think was taken off about maintenance updates. So I was just wondering, is there any update on the Space City sweeper? Did I get that name right? The little sweeper that fits in the lanes, as far as, is it running? How many miles is it getting done a day? That kind of thing.
Joe, I don't have a summary of the mileage. It is running. It did a recent sweep on Cavalcade. And they actually went out a couple of times because the first time got a lot filled up like bags. I didn't realize what this stuff looks like, but it having been in that area, it did make a bit of a difference. And for the next quarterly update, we'll ask Public Works if they can give us some tracking for how often they've been out.
Okay, that'd be great. And I did want to pontificate a little bit here. We've seen that the deaths, of people riding on bikes is setting new records, or it's certainly poised to do that this year, and it's very concerning. And there's a lot of potential reasons for that. Drivers looking at their phones or distracted by other things, people driving big vehicles that give the people they hit less chances of survival. But to me, and all that's true. It points out to me, though, the huge need that we need to really, and someone else mentioned it earlier, I think it was you, Alex, the need to devote more resources to the bikeway network. To separated, safe, accessible bicycle facilities, because I'm certainly thinking there aren't very many that I've heard of. I did hear of one fatality where a cyclist was riding on the Columbia Tap crossing McKinney, and that's being dealt with, as I understand it, by improving the signage and hopefully some flashing lights and so forth at that crossing. And certainly trail crossings of streets are a big deal, but that's a whole nother topic. But we need to devote more resources, clearly, to safe, separated bike lanes. And that leads me to the next topic, and I'll stop with that. But we have an election coming up this fall, and including mayors. And there was an article recently showing how, Houston has a strong mayor, and that mayor makes a big difference in what gets done and what doesn't get done around the city. And our current mayor has done a great job. He promised a paradigm shift. It hadn't shifted as quickly or as far as a lot of us would like it to be. There's reasons for that. But we really, this next mayor, it's going to either, take us to the next level, keep us under the current momentum, or shut it down altogether, depending on who gets in that office. So we all need to do our homework. And hopefully, I know there's at least one mayoral, I can't pronounce it, forum for mayor candidates that's scheduled for October by the Braves Bio Association. So anyone who can attend that, I would certainly encourage that. I would encourage Bike Houston to put out the questionnaire they've done in past elections to candidates and saying, hey, where do you stand on bikeways? Is this something that's a priority to you? So, that's end of sermon, but, this is a big year for us. And when it comes to elections, we need to all do our part to make sure the new slate of council members and the mayor has bikeways as a high priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Joe?
Hey, and just a quick response to Tom. Have a few things in the works on that, so stay tuned. I want to just say I appreciate David's update on the detour plans for trails and for bikeways. I'm glad to know that Tom is part of that group. The key question I have, and it likely can't be answered here in this moment, but is how the detours or the detour updates in the IDM will be enforced. Because as we know, there's a number of different departments or agencies within the city or outside of the city, Harris County Flood Control, Houston Parks Board, et cetera, who do closures, whether it's the bikeway and sidewalk on Waugh, which was approved to be closed by the Houston Permitting Center at Public Works, or if it's the Mayor's Office of Special Events, who routinely closes the bikeway on Lamar Street by Sam Houston Park and recently closed the Buffalo Bayou Trail. There's not just one group of good actors who happen to have to close trails from time to time. There's a variety of different groups who have different viewpoints on the importance of safe detours. So I just want to make sure that the enforcement of these updates is something that the group is focused on. And then quickly, I just wanted to know if there are any designs yet available for Commerce Street. We heard about the tracks being torn up and that there'll be protected bike lanes as part of the design. Are we only in the concept phase, or are we at a point where there is a design at this point?
Okay, so For Commerce Street, I can answer that question. So right now it says that HPW is designing as part of the asphalt mill and overlay project. The rail track will be removed. And that's the Commerce Street to St. Charles to Velasco. I can't answer the other questions that you asked, but we'll get back to you, Joe, on that.
I mean, I heard those more as comments.
Same. No, we can connect another time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the committee? Oh, yes.
One more comment. Just wanted to share that the Texas State TA call for projects review is underway for projects. The Houston District area got 29 infrastructure projects, and we'll be hearing end of October which, if any, got selected. So stay tuned on that.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee?
I'll just go while he's getting his thoughts together. Given that, we're seeing climate change happening all over the world. I mean, it's a worldwide problem. It's caused by generally combustion engines, burning fossil fuels. So one of the answers is, traveling by bicycle or using more public transportation. And given that we need to make that change, that there should be a greater focus on making sure that happens safely by staff and everybody that's concerned. Drivers should be looking out for bicyclists, and these, the state could put out their signs, or tell somebody to put out the signs, watch out for bicycles. We need to buy bicycles more. So I think we need to talk about and get behavioral changes that will alleviate or reduce our carbon footprint.
Thank you.
Okay, so I found my thought. So Ed mentioned that he lost some funding for some project that he was looking at for Columbia Tap. And I feel like that's almost relevant with us in the bike conversation, because we have to coordinate with other departments, City of Houston Planning, Public Works, the Harris County precincts, and tying whenever it comes to like federal dollars. What measures do we have to kind of make sure that we apply to these, like the grant program that you apply for Telephone Road? Like, if something were to happen between a department where there's a miscommunication and like somehow we lose that funding, how can we make more streamlined, processes for making sure that our projects aren't kind of cut down, I guess? Because I know that's also part of like, what the mayor supports, which Tom brought up, like this year is pretty important because, they can basically control the budget. Is that correct, David?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
So what we're trying to get to is that Ed did mention that they applied for some grant funding and that they lost it because the communication between Public Works, I think, and another department where they couldn't figure out who had, the authority to make decisions. And coming back to here, I know that one of the biggest projects that required a lot of different parties was the equipment project, Precinct 2, Northside Management District, Metro. So that was like one of the prime examples of how coordination fell through, that projects are being, I guess, built up and being effective. And what I'm trying to ask is like, what methods or how do we ensure that we don't miss out on delays or how to like running into delays?
I'm not exactly sure, but I'll take my best guess. I'll use Telephone Road as an example. You mentioned it a couple of times. We had already done the planning. We had the bike plan prioritization analysis that we'd done the high injury network. We had the disadvantaged communities, complete communities analysis. So when a grant application came up, it was not a question of Department A wanted to do this and Department B wanted to do this. We were all very clear on what the city's priorities were because we'd already taken all these inputs, the BACs specifically from the prioritization exercise. And I want to say we're getting a lot better at it. I will not say any city is perfect on everything, but I think we're a lot further along than we have been in the past, which is why we've brought in over $50 million in Safe Streets funding in the past 18 months. We feel like that's a pretty good record that we're going on.
All right, that kind of makes, yeah. I was aware of the high injury network and our prioritization list that we have when we first started the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Question, like, how do we feel about that right now? Are we in the right step? Do we need to update something from that?
The prioritization?
Right.
So what we had committed to is once we get through the complete first tier of projects, that was Washington Avenue, Irvington Boulevard, and the extension of Hillcroft. Then we would rerun that analysis. We figured that would be about 3 years, and we're in that section right now. We had received the HGAC grant for Washington Avenue. That project's going to kick off planning very soon. We received the Reconnecting Communities grant for planning for Hillcroft. So as soon as we get through a lot of paperwork for the feds, that will be started soon. And we are working between us and some of our partners on Irvington. So exactly what you all told us to do, figure out a methodology, come up with the priorities, and then start applying for grants and resources. We're doing exactly that, and seems to be going pretty well. I will say the corridor with the next highest priority that I hear from many bike community members is also in the next tier as it currently has been evaluated, which would be the full length of Commerce, getting it all the way downtown. So even though we will reanalyze it through GIS, my gut tells me the next couple of projects are probably going to stay the same.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Are there any other comments?
I do have a concern with a little bit with lighting at I think it's always been a worry of mine, where trails intersect really popular roads, how we can kind of improve that. Maybe part of like the small budget that we have to kind of improve intersections, or not intersections, but missing spots in the network, right? The example I thought of was like the hawk signal that happened, and the mayor, like, allocated funds on Shepherd where those two people were hit by a car, and like he installed a hawk signal or something like that. And I'm thinking like how we can apply something like that to maybe it's not a high injury network. Maybe that's why we're not looking at it. But I know that where the bike trail crosses a really heavy intersection and there's poor lighting. Maybe there's an opportunity there that we can kind of look at when we're like looking at our network.
And just to be clear, are you talking about overhead lighting or a traffic signal lighting?
Well, whatever works, because I mean, the funding at this point, and I know we're very constrained, so we want to like kind of do what we can with what we have. And if it's cheaper just to put overhead lighting, let's do that.
How about if you or really any committee members have a lighting specific issue, send it on to us. We do have a path forward. We work with Centerpoint. There's still a cost, but we go out and there are certain standards. Frequently we go out and it seems like, some new lighting is needed. But if you'll funnel to us, we may be able to come back to you all and say some of that funding from the Strategic Safety Initiative, Bikeways Initiative, might be applicable for that. So just send it on to Brandon and he'll funnel that, and we'll take a look.
Awesome. Okay.
Tom has a question.
Yes, thank you. I hit the button twice, sorry. Yeah, you mentioned the Strategic Projects Initiative. David, could you give us an update on the 3 projects that we had in the hopper for this year and what may be coming up next?
I can tell you about 2. You'll have to remind me what the third was.
Okay, maybe I miscounted.
So on San Jacinto at the Trail Crossing, that we're actually able to move forward with. We thought that was going to have to go out to a construction contractor, but we think we can do that in-house. So I should have a good update for you on that one very soon. The signage on North Main, signage and striping will come after. Without getting too far in the weeds, it wasn't on a certain list of material. We have to update that list. We're doing that right now. All I can say is bureaucracy, but we are working on it. But those 2 are coming very soon for this current year's 10%. If the committee has suggestions for locations for staff to look at, please funnel those over to us and we can start putting that list together for you.
Okay,
And
great.
to reach out is Bikeways at Houston, I think it is, the email for the Houston Bike Plan. Is that the proper method? Okay, Brandon. Okay.
Mosley at HoustonTX.gov,
Okay.
and he is incredibly responsive.
Yeah, he is. I'll second that. Real quick clarification on the Main Street. I thought that was from like downtown to Midtown. Am I misremembering?
It's I want to say St. Joseph all the way up to the plaza, so it doesn't
Okay.
cross 45.
Okay, great. Thanks for that clarification. Oh, yeah, okay, okay, I do have a question on that. Part of that's underwater, right?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, the street does not go continuously from St. Joseph to essentially to the north end. There's that block or 2 that that does not have a traffic way. Am I remembering that right? Yeah.
So this would
how-
only go to that plaza.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you.
And then north of that plaza becomes the More Space Main Street blocks.
Oh, awesome. Great. I didn't realize that. Is that proposed as a permanent change?
More Space Main Street?
Yes.
Yes, City Council approved that for permanence, and we're working with the downtown district on a more permanent design for those blocks right now. And your very own Brandon Mosley is part of that team.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I don't think that Grady Mapes is in the conversation anymore. Okay, because it slipped my mind, but what's going to happen to the Polk Lane bike lane? So if you can probably just ask him an email about what's the update on that, or how is it affected by this project? And if it's being negatively affected, how can that be kind of like mitigated?
Okay, we'll do. I'll take that question and send it to him.
All right, thank you.
I'll follow up.
Can I piggyback on Alejandro's comment, just because it would be nice to hear TxDOT's official position at this point? Polk is also a really important transit street. So if they could just provide an update on what is their current thinking about transit and bike connections along Polk?
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, great. Next on the agenda is announcements. I believe we have Virginia, who's very excited about announcing the North Main Street event.
I am. How did you know how excited I was?
Because I'm excited too.
Yeah, so we've been working on North Main for quite a while now. As everybody on this call knows, we've extended it to add a second phase to the project. That's from Cottage to Airline. So now the full boundary is from Boundary Street to Airline. And it's going to be a really nice, safe corridor with protected bikeways. And we're going to get those vehicle speeds under control and add a ton of great safe crossings. So we are really excited about this project. And we're having another community meeting next Wednesday at 6 p.m. at Monty Beach Community Center. And we would love for anybody to attend or for y'all to share this information. I can provide the flyers. We have them in English and Spanish. The information about the public meeting is on the project page, which is linked here. So if you have any questions about it, please let me know. But we're really excited about having another meeting just to share the project, get more feedback as we are still in design for phase 2. Oh, okay. This is still me. So I've got this flyer, and then if you could also show the next slide, whoever's controlling the slide deck. Okay, and 11th Street. So we recently produced these two different flyers for 11th Street and Polk Street. The 11th Street one is posted publicly on the 11th Street project page, and I believe was also mailed out to some property owners, maybe all the property owners along 11th Street. The Polk Street flyer was provided to stakeholders, some community members that were asking questions and had concerns, as is fair, regarding what was happening on Polk Street and how they would be doing trash pickup. So we wanted to share these flyers with the BAC, both for your feedback. So, you know, what would you love to see on these flyers if we start sharing them more often after we do improvements or as we do improvements, so that people can be kind of aware of the changes on their street and how to use them in a day-to-day, whether or not they are biking to use them. Yeah, that's basically it. We'd like your feedback. Also, if you have any recommendations about distribution processes, that'd be great too. So that's all for me.
Thank you, Joe.
Hey, that's a great resource. Thanks, Virginia. I don't know if you've put them on, if you've sent these flyers out to the homes along Commonwealth and Waugh, but I know that's another location where we commonly see trash bins in the bikeways once in a while. The other thing I just wanted to sort of announce, I guess, Bike Houston has had two pretty successful bike lane cleanups in the last couple of weeks. One on the newly reopened bikeway trail underneath the highway over by Chartres Street, where it ends at Commerce Street, and also on Lawndale. And we've been talking with Public Works about identifying what the next segments will be, so we don't duplicate efforts with the Space City Sweeper. So keep an ear out. We'll be announcing the next bikeway cleanups in the coming weeks, and how you can be part of them.
Joe, if you don't mind, you can email me that information. I'll make sure it is sent out to the group.
Excellent. Thanks, Brandon.
Robin?
Thanks, Misty. Virginia, I have a suggestion for these flyers if we can. I really like how they show that we're putting the bins right in the right place, but over the course of a day or a day and a half, while our very busy solid waste guys get to it, they can move, especially after they've been collected. I'm wondering if we can add a request to, and hey, at the end of the day, please recover, collect, take your bin back out of the street as soon as it's done, because they don't stay nicely on the edge of the bike lane. They end up on their side in the middle of everywhere.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, that's the end of announcements. The next meeting we will have is the Infrastructure Subcommittee meeting on August 23rd from 2:30 to 4:30 in the Johnny B. Rea Conference Room on 611 Walker 6th floor. And that will be the location for the Education Subcommittee on September 27th from 2:30 to 4:30. And the next time we meet will be October 25th from 2:30 to 4:30 here in the council chambers.
I have a question about the October meeting. I think the last time you asked us to everybody come to the meeting in person for a picture, so will we do that?
Yes, we will be doing that on October 25th. So make sure you're ready for your pictures.
I want to see that suit, Dr. V.
And one reminder to the Education Subcommittee, based on what we had spoken about at the last meeting, you had asked staff to start organizing what would be a data set available. We've not heard from anybody about what that was. Your homework was to take 2 weeks and think about what you would like in there. If it's a null set, that is what we're going to put together. So if you have thoughts, please send it on. Thank you.
Is Virginia still on the call?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you saw Trevor's very clever suggestion in the chat, coming back to the solid waste bins, asking whether it's possible to have that content produced as stickers that could live directly on the cans along the bikeway streets.
We have not explored that. I'm happy to ask that question. What I can tell you is I imagine if it were done, it would be done by solid waste themselves, and not applied by users of the bike lane.
Thank you. Okay, well, that's in for announcements. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.